Hello everyone, and welcome back to another build video. DMs and players that fight alongside this menace, I'm sorry in advance. I present you with a fun build that I like to call the Grave Assassin. And this works with a very interesting interaction that I found between Grave Cleric and Assassin Rogue. And the interaction, it's funny, it's basically a delete button. Allow me to explain. So at second level, Grave Clerics get this lovely little ability with their channel divinity called Path to the Grave. As an action, you choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you, cursing it until the end of your next turn. The next time you or an ally of yours hits the cursed creature with an attack, the creature has vulnerability to all of that attack's damage, and then the curse ends. Now, that has the potential to do a lot of damage, all in one turn. Considering the fact too that this is all the damage affiliated with that one attack, this includes sneak attack damage. But wait, I can already hear you asking, it's an action. How would that even be possible to mark a creature as an action and then attack it? I'm so glad you asked. The answer, the Quick Toss Battle Master maneuver. This maneuver allows you to throw a ranged weapon as a bonus action by spending a superiority die. And if the attack hits, said attack deals damage equal to a roll of that superiority die. And this is crucial. This little combo will allow us to mark our enemy as an action and then fire off a powerful attack against them as a bonus action, all within the same turn. Now the maneuver is very important, and there are quite a few different ways we can get access to this. We can either play as a Battlemaster fighter, we can take a single level of fighter and get the superior maneuver fighting style level 1, or we can go variant human or custom lineage to get martial adept as a feat of our choice. In my opinion, these last two options are without a doubt the best and easiest to work with for what we want to do. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to what else we're building, we'll want to go rogue. Assassin Rogue to be specific. Assassin Rogues get access to the Assassinate feature at level 3, and what this lovely feature does is it gives you advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. This means that if that creature hasn't taken a turn in combat yet, you can pop sneak attack off on them. And with Quick Toss, you can now give yourself a supercharged sneak attack as a bonus action. And if your target is surprised, then it's good night. And even though it's early level, you're still dealing massive damage. And this is a potentially 5th level build. 3 levels of Assassin Rogue, 2 levels of Grave Cleric, custom lineage or variant human for the maneuver, and for your stats focus on having a 17 in dex and at least a 13 in wisdom for the multiclassing. So with this, here's how your delete combo would work within combat. Action, Mark of the Grave. Your target will take vulnerability to the next attack they take. Bonus action, Quick Toss. If this attack hits, it will deal 1d4 damage from our thrown weapon, which will either be a dart or a dagger. 3 on average from our dexterity being about a 17 by this point, 1d6 from our maneuver, and 2d6 from sneak attack. On average, this will deal 17 points of damage, but our target also has vulnerability because of our mark, ramping up our damage from this combo to 34 points of piercing damage on average. And now, rogues are opportunists, waiting for the perfect moment to really get the jump on their enemies, and this build really makes use of that mentality. Yes, 34 points of damage can potentially end a fight to a single target, especially at lower levels. However, there are a few other ways you can make this build even stronger. First, as I already mentioned with Assassin, this build is perfect for taking out one particular target. If you can manage to get the jump on your enemies, either through, just having a high stealth because you're a rogue, or maybe through the aid of an ally's invisibility spell, you can surprise them. And if a target is surprised, this attack will crit, doubling this average, putting us up to about 68 piercing damage, of course, depending on how you roll crits at your own tables. And things get only crazier from here. The more you level your character up, the more potent sneak attack damage becomes, which in turn means even more burst damage with Mark of the Grave. And this is the basic premise of the build, doing nuclear levels of damage early game and having it carry really well with you throughout the later levels too. However, the path you need to take isn't as forced as I'm making it seem. For the sake of having this build come online at 5th level, yes, these are all of the things that you need to have in order for it to work at this point, but if you're willing to wait a few levels, you can really get access to some other amazing combos that can further push this damage. So in boosting this damage, there are 2 things that I've found that can really help to boost the damage output. The first one will definitely need to be up to the discretion of your DM, and this is by taking the Knight of Solamnia background if you can. What this background does is allow you to get access to the Squire of Solamnia feat, and this feat is super strong with this build. Once per turn, you can give yourself advantage on a weapon attack, and if that attack hits, then it deals an additional 1d8 damage. With this, when we make an attack, we can use this feature, add an additional 1d8 damage, which with our mark can also be doubled, and with our surprise crit can also be doubled. On average, a d8 roll will be a 5, this meaning that our surprise crit with the mark quadruples that to an extra 20 damage. And the next way to strengthen this build is also pretty obvious. Just keep leveling. And this is a great point in the build to showcase the fact that as you level up, you're only getting stronger. The more the sneak attack grows, the more powerful you become overall, and being able to double and even quadruple the damage. But literally, just taking one additional level into Rogue will get us an ability score improvement, and my personal recommendation here is to take the Piercer feat. What this feat is good for is it allows us to re-roll a damage die when we deal piercing damage, and also, of course, this is going to boost our dexterity up a little bit, which is nice, which is probably going to turn our 17 into an 18 and our plus 3 damage modifier into a plus 4 damage modifier. But the really fun part about this is that with Piercer, when we score a crit, we can take one of the die we used in that attack and then add another damage die of that same type. What this means is, let's say for instance our regular sneak attack is a d6, or involves a d6 of damage. With Piercer, and when we get a crit, we can give ourselves another d6 of damage to tack on to all of our damage. The highest damage die we have from this combo that we're working with is an additional d8 from our Squire of Solamnia feature from our background. Making sure that we can actually get this background first. And if we can't get the background, we can just add in another d6 instead from either our sneak attack or our maneuver. So now let's take a look at this improved math. At literally 6th level, 2 levels of Cleric, 4 levels of Rogue, we have 1d6 from our maneuver, 2d6 from sneak attack, plus 4 modifier for dexterity, 1d4 damage from our weapon, 1d8 from our background's feature, and an additional 1d8 piercing damage from our Piercer crit, times 2 because of vulnerability, times another 2 because of crit. So our average rolls are 4, 8, 4, 2, 5, 5 times 4, 28 times 4, 112 piercing damage. So calculating all of this with just average rolls, 112 piercing damage. And it gets even spicier from here. Now, despite the fact that the sooner we get access to Quick Toss, the better, we can do so much more damage with this build if we take Half Orc for our race instead. Granted, this combo is building a bit better for mid and late game, but just bear with me. The reason for Half Orc is that we get access to the feature Savage Attacks. This feature allows us to add an additional damage die to our damage whenever we make a critical hit. And combining this with our crit shenanigans already, and if we are allowed to take the Knight of Solamnia background, we can add an additional d8 to our damage and end up quadrupling that again. However, if we decide to go Half Orc instead of Custom Lineage Variant Human, it does mean that we won't start with the Quick Toss feature, and it will take more time for the overall build to come together. We'll likely have to take a level of Fighter as the quickest way to get it, but even then, this would be 2 levels of Cleric, 1 level of Fighter, and 4 levels of Rogue, totaling a level 7 character that can potentially do over 120 damage on average with a single fight. And also, here's another thing too. This combo, this is a once a fight feature. This isn't a once a day feature. This is like once a short rest feature. And yeah, something that I hadn't actually clarified before, your Mark of the Grave feature, as well as your superiority die, get replenished on a short rest. So you can actually fire this combo off multiple times a day. However, the initial damage is going to be kind of scaled depending on if you use Squire of Solamnia, if you even have it. But for the most part, Mark, Quick Toss, that's something you can pop once a fight every short rest. And that is the bare bones of the build. And however, there are a few aspects that can influence how well the build is made, and this is mostly stemming from your background. Some DMs might not be cool with using the background because it's said to be exclusive to Dragonlance, but some will be fine with it, so just make sure that they're okay with it first. And also, if you decide to play this build let them know that this is the reason why you want this background. Because they might be like, oh, I don't really see the harm in it, and then realize that you're going to be doing over 120 damage in one attack. So make sure they're okay with this, please. And while this build is incredibly strong and deals a ton of damage as it is, let's not forget everything else this build is great at besides deleting enemies from existence. Thanks to our Cleric multiclass, you get some great low-level spellcasting utility and healing options for yourself and your party. And thanks to going Rogue, you give yourself some excellent skill proficiencies as well. And if you decide to take that little tip into Fighter, it can really help you strengthen yourself with Second Wind for that last little heal buff. And anyways though, there's a lot of different ways you can take this combo, but the important gist is Grave Cleric, Assassin Rogue. I just wanted to show you the different ways you can add to the insanity of this build. An important disclaimer here, as I've probably mentioned in some of the parts of the video, players, please don't ruin D&D for your DM and other players. This build can do some pretty nuclear damage at some very early levels, so just keep that in mind. Some people might be into it, other people might not be into it. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed the build, and if you did, then please like the video and subscribe for even more D&D content. And in the meantime, keep smiling, keep scheming, and I'll see all of you next time.